day! I am so pleased that you've chosen to join me once again as we continue learning the proper manners and etiquette of a Victorian gentleman. As I said last week, don't mind the looks of those around. They're not used to seeing people attired quite as you are, but they will adjust in time if they keep seeing you on a weekly basis. Now, as you can see behind me, we have a lovely, lovely Victorian home. We like this style. It emphasizes grace and a sense of taste. Now, there are a few things one should know when visiting a Victorian home. Certain points of etiquette must be followed. First of all, upon arriving at the home, never should a gentleman knock on the door with his cane. This is very rude. First of all, you may damage the door, and that's not a very polite thing to do to your host or hostess. Simply knock on the door lightly with your fist, or use a knocker or pull the bell pull if there is one available, and wait for the door to be answered. Upon crossing the threshold into the abode, one should doff their hat. Hand your hat and cane to the butler, or if your host does not have a butler and is greeting you himself, he will offer to take them. He will then patiently wait while you remove your gloves. Place your gloves inside your hat. That way they won't get lost or separated. And your host or his butler will return them to you upon your departure. Secondly, if the house you are visiting is of a more upper class, the butler may well offer you a small tray. This is known as a card tray, upon which you are to place your calling card. The butler will then convey this to the master or mistress of the house to announce your arrival. And the third thing, although perhaps it should have been the first, is timing. One must always, as a Victorian gentleman, carry a pocket watch. Make sure your watch is wound and set at the proper time. For two things that are very ill-mannered are, one, to arrive early. This is extremely rude. You may catch your host or hostess unprepared, thus embarrassing them to no end. And if you arrive late, I understand in your era that there is a thing called fashionably late. Never, never should such a thing happen with a Victorian gentleman. To arrive late is an insult to your host or hostess. You're telling them their time is not important to you. So as a proper Victorian gentleman, one should always arrive at the hour appointed. If you are invited for a 4 o'clock tea, arrive at 4 o'clock. Not 3:58 or 4:05, but precisely at 4 o'clock. Now, if there are other people ahead of you at the door at 4 o'clock, then that delay is acceptable, because you are on the property at the appointed time, but have been delayed by others, and that is to be expected. If you arrive at the door at the same time as a lady caller, by all means, first greet her, but then, when the door is opened, as any gentleman should, allow her to enter before you. Wait patiently while she is addressed by the host or hostess or their butler, and wait your turn. This is nothing but good manners. Anything else is just ill breeding. What else can we learn today? Well, if you've been invited for a meal, you should, at the very least, following the repast, spend an hour with your host or hostess. To rush off immediately afterwards is just an insult to your host or hostess. You're saying that you do not wish to spend time with them. You enjoy their meal, but not their company. Very, very rude. So plan on spending at least an hour after the dinner, and then make your formal withdrawal. If a lady should leave the room before you, be sure to stand and wait till she is fully out of the room. To merely stand as she stands, and then to sit back down before she's left the room, is the height of rudeness and should never be tolerated. So, gentlemen, remember these things next time you're invited to someone's home. If you mind these manners and forms of etiquette, you will be invited back and will always be considered pleasant company. Well, I hope you will think on these things, add them to your repertoire of good manners. And until next week, I do hope you will join me next week. I bid you adieu.